Do you ever feel like you're surrounded by people, but are still completely alone? It's a feeling many of us experience, especially as our lives change in retirement. Hello, I'm John from Texas, United States, your friend and narrator of real stories. Stay with me until the end of this incredible story. Want to see your story told here? Then get in touch with us. This is a story about that very feeling. 80 years of life had taught Professor Richard Sterling one profound, if melancholic, truth. A room full of people can be the loneliest place on earth. He lived in the Golden Vistas retirement community, a sprawling campus of manicured lawns and cheerful buildings that promised a vibrant life for old-age people. For most residents, it delivered. The senior center buzzed with the clatter of bingo chips and line dancing classes. But for Richard, a retired history professor and recent widower, it was all just noise. His life had become a quiet, solitary study in the art of being invisible. His days were ordered by the silent turning of pages. He would wake, make his coffee, and lose himself in the epic books of his grand love stories of kings and queens. He would then turn to his Bible, a book he had studied with academic rigor for decades, finding intellectual solace in its narratives. But the comfort was intellectual, not spiritual. God, for Richard, was a concept to be analyzed, not a presence to be felt. He ate his meals alone in the vast dining hall, always choosing a small table by the window, a silent observer of the forced cheerfulness around him. He felt a profound disconnect. His life had been one of the mind, and he did not know how to speak the common language of small talk. His health was fine physically, but his soul was suffering from a deep and undiagnosed malady, a crisis of purpose. He felt like a book that had already been read and placed back on the shelf, left to gather dust. Then Sarah moved in. She took the apartment directly across the hall, her arrival announced by a flurry of activity and the scent of freshly baked bread. He watched her from his window, a small, bustling woman with a halo of white hair and a smile that seemed permanent. He immediately judged her as one of them, the relentlessly cheerful, the determinedly social. He retreated further into his shell. It's so easy to close ourselves off when we're grieving or feeling out of place. Have you ever had to fight the urge to retreat into your own shell? What helps you stay connected, even when it feels difficult? Share your thoughts in the comments. Her first attempt at contact came that evening, a gentle knock on his door. He opened it a crack to see her holding a plate. "Hello," she chirped. "I'm Sarah, your new neighbor. I baked a little too much banana bread and thought you might like some." Richard stared at the plate. It was an offering, a Trojan horse designed to breach the walls of his solitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice a dry rustle. He took the plate, gave a curt nod, and closed the door. He ate the bread. Of course, it was delicious. But he did not return the plate. Sarah, however, was not easily dissuaded. Her kindness was a form of gentle, persistent siege warfare. She would greet him in the hallway with a "Good morning, Professor," that was impossible to ignore. She started leaving a copy of the morning newspaper outside his door. "I get two by mistake sometimes," she had called through his door. He knew it wasn't a mistake. Then came the invitations. "They're having a lecture on the Civil War at the Senior Center tonight, Professor." He declined. "A new documentary about ancient Egypt is playing." He declined. "A few of us are starting a small Bible study group, just a casual chat." He declined that too, almost offended. His faith was a private, intellectual pursuit, not something to be shared over coffee and cookies. He was a historian. He knew that no fortress, no matter how well constructed, could withstand a siege forever. The breach came on a Tuesday afternoon. He was returning from his weekly trip to the off-site bookstore, his arms laden with a precarious tower of heavy history tomes. As he fumbled for his keys in the hallway, a wave of dizziness, sudden and intense, washed over him. The world tilted sideways. The books cascaded from his arms, thudding to the carpeted floor with a series of dull, defeated sounds. Mortified, he leaned against the wall, his heart pounding, waiting for the spell to pass. Before he could even attempt to recover his scattered books and his dignity, his door across the hall opened. It was Sarah. She didn't gasp or fuss. Her years as a nurse kicked in instantly. "Professor? Richard? Are you all right?" she asked, her voice calm and professional. She was at his side in a moment, her hand gently on his arm, steadying him. "Let's get you inside." He was too weak and too embarrassed to protest. He allowed her to guide him into his apartment and settle him into his armchair. She quickly and efficiently gathered his fallen books, her movements deft and practical. She then went to his kitchen, returning with a glass of water. "Just sit for a moment," she commanded softly. "Take a few deep breaths." He did as he was told, the initial humiliation giving way to a grudging respect. She wasn't pitying him. She was helping him, with a skill and a lack of drama that his own pride could not argue with. After a few minutes, the dizziness subsided. He felt foolish. "Thank you," he murmured, staring at his hands. "I'm fine now." Sarah looked at him, her kind eyes seeing more than he wanted them to. "We all need a helping hand sometimes, Richard," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Even professors. There's no shame in it." She didn't linger. She didn't press him for conversation. She simply said, "If you feel dizzy again, you use that little emergency button they gave us. You hear me?" And with that, she was gone. Richard sat in his armchair for a long time. After she left, the silence of his apartment feeling different now. It was no longer a chosen solitude. It felt like a self-imposed prison. Her simple, competent kindness had done what all her cheerful invitations could not. It had breached his walls. It had shown him his own vulnerability, and in doing so, had revealed the poverty of his own isolation. He was a historian who had studied the grand sweep of human events, the rise of nations, the stories of great men, but he had forgotten the most fundamental lesson of all history, that no one, not even a king or a professor, ever truly makes it through alone. The following morning, Richard woke up with a feeling that was entirely foreign to him, a sense of obligation. Not the dreary obligation of his daily, solitary routine, but the uncomfortable, nagging obligation of a debt unpaid. Sarah's kindness had been a gift, offered without expectation, and his pride demanded that it be acknowledged. But how? A simple thank. You felt inadequate. After much deliberation, he settled on a plan that felt safe, that operated within the rules of his own formal academic world. He would return her banana bread plate, and with it, he would offer a gift of his own, a currency he understood, a book. He scanned his vast library, his eyes passing over the dense academic tomes. He finally selected a beautifully illustrated volume on the history of ancient Rome, one that was both scholarly and accessible. He wrote a small formal inscription on the inside cover, "To Sarah, with gratitude for your neighborly assistance, Richard Sterling." With the plate in one hand and the heavy book in the other, he walked the 10 steps across the hall and knocked on her door, his heart beating a little faster than he would have liked. When she opened the door, her bright smile was one of genuine surprise. "Richard, good morning. Is everything all right?" "I'm fine," he said, a little too quickly. "I came to return your plate." The bread was quite excellent. He then held out the book. "And this is for you. A small token of my appreciation for your help yesterday." Sarah accepted the book, her eyes wide with pleasure. "Oh my goodness, Richard, you didn't have to do this. This is beautiful." She opened it and read the inscription, her smile softening. It's a beautiful moment when someone meets us where we are, speaking our language. Have you ever connected with someone unexpected by sharing a passion or a hobby? Tell us about it in the comments. But then she did something that caught him off guard. She didn't just thank him and close the door. She looked up from the book, her eyes sparkling with genuine curiosity. "I've always been fascinated by Rome," she said. "Tell me, what's your favorite story from this era?" He was momentarily speechless. He was prepared for a brief, polite exchange. He was not prepared for a genuine question. He found himself, much to his own surprise, launching into a brief, animated explanation of the political intrigue surrounding Julius Caesar. He spoke for 5 minutes, the old professor in him coming alive, and she listened, not with polite patience, but with rapt attention. When he finished, she smiled. "That's fascinating. You make it sound so alive." Then she saw her opening. "You know," she said, her tone casual but her eyes kind, "our little Bible study group is meeting in the senior center this afternoon. We're discussing the parable of the Good Samaritan. I know you declined before, but I can't help but think, a historian's perspective on the social context, on who the Samaritans really were back then. It would be such a gift for the group." Richard's defenses were down. The formal exchange he had planned had turned into a real conversation. The memory of her kindness from the day before was still fresh. To refuse now felt not just rude, but churlish. He heard himself, as if from a great distance, say the words he never thought he would say. What time? That afternoon, he walked into the small meeting room at the senior center, feeling like an anthropologist studying a strange new tribe. There were 4 other people there besides Sarah, 2 women who chattered like sparrows, and a quiet man who nodded a lot. They were amateurs, hobbyists of faith. He felt a familiar sense of intellectual superiority, but it was mingled with a new, uncomfortable humility. The discussion began, led by Sarah. They read the passage from the Gospel of Luke. They talked about what it meant to be a good neighbor, sharing personal stories of kindness given and received. Richard remained silent, an observer. Then one of the women, the sweet lady named Doris, asked a simple question. "I've never understood," she said, "why the priest and the Levite passed by. Weren't they supposed to be the religious ones?" The group murmured in agreement, but no one had a clear answer. And Richard, despite himself, could not resist. The professor in him took over. "Well," he began, his voice sounding loud in the small room, "to understand that, you have to understand the context of the time." Richard's historical knowledge brought the Bible story to life for his new friends. What special skill or knowledge do you have from your life or career that you could share with others? Let us know. Your expertise is valuable. For the next 10 minutes, Richard held them captivated. He wasn't just quoting scripture, he was painting a picture. He explained the strict purity laws of the temple, how touching a body, possibly dead, would have made the priest and the Levite ritually unclean, unable to perform their sacred duties. He described the treacherous bandit-infested road from Jerusalem to Jericho. He explained the deep, centuries-old animosity between the Jews and the Samaritans, how they were seen as half-breeds, heretics. To a Jew of that time, he explained, a Samaritan was the last person on earth you would expect to show mercy. He was bringing history to life, giving bones and flesh to a story they had only ever known in 2 dimensions. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment, and then it erupted in a small flurry of excited questions. They weren't intimidated by his knowledge. They were hungry for it. They asked him about the Romans, about King Herod, about what life was really like for old-age people in the time of Jesus. He, who had felt so disconnected from these people, suddenly found himself at the center of a vibrant, engaging conversation. He was not just Richard Sterling, the lonely widower. He was Professor Sterling, and he had something of value to offer. He saw the stories in his beloved Bible not just as texts to be analyzed, but as living love stories and lessons that this small, faithful community was trying to apply to their own lives. And he, with his historical knowledge, could help them do that. He could be a bridge between the ancient world and their modern faith. For the first time in years, Richard felt a spark of purpose, of connection, of relevance. It was a feeling he thought he had lost forever. The hour flew by. As they were packing up, Doris patted his arm. "Professor," she said, her eyes shining, "that was the best Bible study I've ever been to. You have to come back next week." As he and Sarah walked back towards their apartments, a comfortable silence settled between them. "You were a wonderful gift to the group today, Richard," Sarah said softly. Richard looked at the manicured lawns of the retirement community, but for the first time, he didn't see the sterile emptiness. He saw a place with hidden stories, a place with searching souls. He saw a community. He gave Sarah a small, rare, and genuine smile. "Perhaps," he said, the word full of a hope that was entirely new. "Perhaps I will." Richard did go back the next week and the week after that. The small Bible study group, energized by his presence, began to grow. Word spread through the retirement community about the history professor who could make the ancient world feel as real as yesterday. Soon, their small meeting room at the senior center was full. Richard, who had once felt invisible, was now the main attraction. He wasn't just a resident anymore. He was a teacher again, and he had found his most eager students. It's amazing how one person's willingness to share their unique gift can create a whole community. What's a special skill or talent you have that you've been able to share with others in your retirement? Tell us about it in the comments. His life, once a monotonous gray, was now filled with the vibrant color of purpose. His days were spent in joyful research, not for a dusty academic journal, but for his weekly talks. He would delve into the history of the early church, the political climate in the time of Jesus, the real-life context of the parables. He was using the knowledge he had spent a lifetime accumulating, not to impress other scholars, but to illuminate the faith of his peers. He was connecting his mind to their hearts, and in doing so, he was healing his own. The loneliness that had been his constant companion simply evaporated. He was no longer the grumpy man in the corner of the dining hall. He was Professor Richard, and people would stop him to ask questions, to thank him for his talk, to share how his insights had deepened their own understanding of God. He found himself in the middle of a thriving community, a community he had helped to build. His friendship with Sarah became the bedrock of his new life. They were a perfect team. She was the heart of the group, the one who welcomed new members, who remembered everyone's name, who provided the warmth and the pastoral care. He was the mind, providing the intellectual rigor and the historical depth. Theirs was a beautiful platonic love story, a partnership in service, a testament to how two lonely souls could come together to create something wonderful for others. One spring, their little community faced a challenge. A new activities director at the senior center, focused on more active senior living programs, decided to cut their room reservation time in half to make way for a new yoga class. The group was dismayed. This victory was about more than just a room reservation. It was about standing up for their community's needs. Tell us about a time you had to advocate for yourself or a group you cared about. It's so inspiring to hear these stories of strength. But the old Richard, who would have retreated into cynical resignation, was gone. The new Richard, supported by Sarah, became an advocate. He and Sarah drafted a petition, gathered signatures, and scheduled a meeting with the director. Richard, using the same articulate, persuasive skills he had once used in university faculty meetings, laid out the case for their group. He spoke of the importance of intellectual and spiritual health for old-age people, arguing that it was just as vital as physical exercise. They won. Their group was given a permanent, protected spot on the weekly schedule. It was a small victory, but for Richard, it was monumental. He had used his voice not for himself, but for his community. He had fought for something that mattered to them all. A year after Sarah had first knocked on his door with a plate of banana bread, Richard stood at the front of their meeting room. It was packed. Every chair was full. He was giving a talk on the Apostle Paul, on his transformation from a persecutor of Christians to the greatest missionary in history. He spoke of Paul's final letters, written from a prison cell, and how, even in his darkest hour, he found a way to continue his work, to share his faith, to serve the community he loved. As he spoke, he looked out at the faces before him, faces of his friends, his students, his community. He saw Sarah in the front row, her smile a beacon of encouragement. In that moment, he understood the true meaning of his own story. His lonely apartment had been his prison. His grief and his intellectual pride had been his chains. And Sarah, with her simple, persistent kindness, had been the one who had come with the key. God had not sent him an angel with trumpets. He had sent a neighbor with a loaf of banana bread. He realized that his life's work was not over. It had just been repurposed for a final, glorious chapter. He was not just a retired professor. He was a teacher of wisdom, a sharer of stories, a builder of community. The epic book of his life was not gathering dust on a shelf. It was still being written, and this final chapter, the one he was living right now, was the most meaningful of all. The story of Richard is a profound testament to the truth that it is never too late to find a new purpose. It teaches us that our greatest gifts, the knowledge and skills we have spent a lifetime acquiring, can find their most beautiful expression in service to others. It is a powerful reminder that the cure for the deep loneliness that can haunt old age is found in the simple, courageous act of human connection. And it shows that sometimes God's greatest blessings come knocking on our door, disguised as a friendly neighbor. If this story of a man who found his purpose in the most unexpected of places has inspired you, please honor it with a like and subscribe to Stories Beyond 50 for more stories of hope and transformation. We now open this space to you, our cherished community. How have you found new purpose in your retirement years? Have you ever discovered that a lifetime of professional skills could be used in a new way to serve others? Tell us about a time when a simple act of kindness from a neighbor or a friend changed the course of your day or even your life. Your wisdom is the light of this community. Please share it with us in the comments below. And if you are not ready to share, but you believe that every person has a purpose at every stage of life, just write the single word purpose in the comments. Let us affirm together that our stories are not over. We read and value every single word you share. Thank you for your heart and your wisdom. God bless you, and we will see you in the next story.